Hey everyone, I'm Jen Mayer with this week's Video Extra, and in it I'd like to talk a little bit about how we move from division to unity. And I'd like to start with a story. When I was in my 20s, I formed an unlikely friendship with a woman from my church named Dottie. She was at least 60 years older than me, and over time, volunteering together, we became buddies. And then her health took a turn for the worse, and she couldn't come to church anymore. And I really lost track of her until one week, the minister to the sick and homebound called and said, "Hey, would you like to go and help bring communion to Dottie?" And I thought, I'd really like to, because I haven't seen her in so long. So we went, and it was great seeing her. And to everyone's surprise, she agreed to let me bring her communion. And it was a surprise because for all of her life, her husband had drank too much, and she always thought her home was chaotic and was never really feeling good about bringing people into it. And so for about 3 or 4 years, not really all that regularly, but I brought her communion when she was feeling well enough to have it. And over that time, she had been sick a few times, had been anointed a few times, but finally got to the point where she was in the hospital, and it was pretty clear that this was the final illness. And so she had 6 kids. They were living in all over the country. And so they moved her to hospice, and the call went home to come back home and say goodbye to Mom. And so they did. And then the surprise was that despite being, basically hanging on to life because of a morphine drip, she lived for more than 2 weeks. I think it was 15 days. And it was kind of weird because you'd said goodbye to her and you were waiting for the call and it just never came. Well, it was also very strange for her kids to have that much time together because they had really, once they grew up and moved out of the house, they hadn't been back. Not all together. It was not the family that had the Norman Rockwell Christmases. And so at the funeral, one of her sons was speaking and said that those 2 weeks were a gift from his mom to his siblings, that there had been a tremendous experience of reconnecting as adults, healing some of the wounds of childhood, and just being able to support one another. Then I want to think about, we just passed the anniversary of September 11th, and that brought back for all of us, I'm sure, different memories. But when I was thinking about unity, it particularly struck me the experience of how very differently we felt as a country in the days and weeks that followed 9/11. There was a palpable sense of connection to one another, a palpable sense of collective empathy for those who had suffered the losses that day, and a sense of interdependence that we've really not seen as a country since then. So then I got to thinking, well, what do those two experiences, this friend's death and the bringing together of her family, and the experience after 9/11 have in common, and what do they teach us about ways to find unity? And I think there are a couple things that emerged for me when I thought about them. One was, it was a reminder of who we are, and kind of our purpose. So for Dottie's kids, there was a sense of their purpose was to support their mom, and an unexpected benefit was they figured out they were there to support one another. Certainly in the days after 9/11, we had a purpose to support all those who had suffered and try and make that suffering as bearable as possible, whether it be through raising funds or just bringing meals or whatever we could do, we were willing to do it. And I think that's the second thing that it triggered was Both of those experiences allowed people to step into someone else's shoes in a way that they wouldn't have normally bothered to. And so you could suddenly imagine what it might have been like to be a surviving firefighter on 9/11 and have so many of your friends and brothers perish. You could imagine, maybe if you were in that family, what it was like to be one of the other kids and listen to their stories and really get that experience of the other. And I think it's true that anytime we have a common experience where we're all experiencing the same thing at the same time, we have so much of a better ability to come to union because, well, it's great if I can be empathetic today and you can be empathetic tomorrow and Bob can be empathetic on Thursday. If we can all be empathetic and at the same time, that's where unity emerges. So I wanted to just ask you, what has been your experience? What have been the things that have helped you move from division to unity in your life?